quotes a hadith from the Prophet, the best of your religion, meaning the best of your practice, the best of your approach to Islam is the most easygoing. Not the lenient. We're not saying water Islam down. So moderation. That's an important thing. Why? Because another hadith, also quoted in the book, the Prophet ﷺ says, فَإِنَّ الْمُنْبَتَّ لَا أَرْضًا قَطَعْ وَلَا ظَهْرًا أَبْقَى. It's an analogy the Prophet ﷺ gave as someone who's traveling on a camel. And say roughly, the journey takes 2 weeks, but the person wants to make it more quickly. So the person pushes the riding animal. They don't take breaks, they don't rest, they don't sleep, they don't offer maintenance to their vehicle, right? Or to the horse or to the camel. What happens? The camel will collapse. The vehicle will break down. And the person himself or herself will be exhausted and tired to the point that they are unable to function, and thus they will give up and they won't carry on. But if a person goes slowly, incrementally, gradually, again what happens is that ultimately they will arrive at their destination. That's how we should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how we should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, this is for sustainability, that we are able to sustain our good deeds for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by this, alhamdulillah, we have finished this book. And as far as I'm concerned, I found so many good things to learn from it. So many things that could be implemented, and they were very helpful. A lot of beautiful insights as well. So that's it. And since tonight will be the 29th night of Ramadan, I want to just conclude with something. It's become a habit by many people, because almost everyone has access to a camera now, fairly good cameras, right? So people are just waiting till the sun rises and everyone is taking shots of the sun. Everyone's saying, oh, today is Laylatul Qadr, today is this, today is that, today is this. My advice is don't waste your time with this. Don't waste your time with this. You want to stay up till the sun rises, you want to see it for your own self? Perfect. The companions used to do this. The Muslims have done that over the 1400 years. But you start posting pictures and saying, I think this, I think that. My advice, you want to do it? The best thing is not to do it at all. You still want to do it, like you feel the urge and the itch to do it after Eid. Do it after Eid. And my observation from this, from previous years, is, and try to do this by the way, even outside of Ramadan, look at the sun. There will be days when the sun is like so clear and doesn't have so much like rays. Almost every day the sun rises differently. There are so many factors. There's pollution, there's clouds, there's dust, thickness of the air. There is so many reasons. So many reasons. So if you're gonna follow that, it's gonna be problematic. And I remember when I was 23rd night, some people actually came out and they said the sun was so good, it must be Laylatul Qadr. You know, you might not necessarily buy into this fully, but it will affect your stamina to carry on, because it's going to go to your subconscious mind and it's going to subdue your enthusiasm. And if you miss that night, you're going to hear a voice inside you says, what's the point? It's gone. What's the point? Keep pushing myself, or keep doing the good deeds. And sometimes people saw a beautiful sun, 25th, for example, very beautiful sun, right? But how many people are nodding? Huh? Yeah. So, and it's really, let's say it was very special. The sun really matches the description in the hadith, right? maybe the sun of the 29th, it might come out to be even better. It's a very relative matter. There's no way you can guarantee. There is just no way. So when the early generations of the Muslims used to do that, they used it for themselves. Most of them did not publicize it, and they were not sure about it. And a lot of the ones who were sure about it, they just felt it, without the sun, by the way. They just felt it. And let me tell you something, although it's not. One of the scholars, okay, but still he says, I haven't heard, he himself said, I haven't read this or heard this from any other scholar before. And he says, this is why I'm hesitant to say it. And I'm saying, don't take it as well. He says, Laylatul Qadr might fall for different people in different nights. He says, if it is found that any scholar from the previous times said something similar, then that's my opinion. Before this, he says, it's not an opinion yet. And this shows the importance of not coming up with something new, an interpretation, and saying that's the truth. Because once someone, comes up with something new about Islam, about religion, and it's not been said by previous scholars, well, that's a hallmark of deviation. That's a hallmark of deviation. Okay, it was Shaykh Al-Albani basically who said about the night it could possibly fall, and he said it's not an opinion, but he says, I think it might be the case. Why? Because he used to watch the sun as it used to rise. And he would call his daughters. He had a habit of calling his daughters, who were like adults at the time. And he'd say, one of his daughters was in Riyadh, one of them was in Jeddah, one of them was in Syria, I think in Damascus, different places. And he would call them and he'd say, how's the sun? How's the sun? How's the sun? And for him, sometimes the sun matched the description in the hadith. And he would call his daughters. One of them would say, no, it's quite a strong sun, right? From as soon as the sun had risen, there was a lot of light and brightness. And he said he noticed over time that there is no consistent account of the sun on the same day. So he said it might be the case that it falls on different nights for different people. Again, so I'm just saying, even Shaykh Al-Albani did not take this as his own opinion. He said, why? Because he's never come across that before. So he did not say it as his opinion. But the point here is the best way is to follow the approach of the Prophet ﷺ. The last 10 nights, use them fully. Use them fully. There is nothing authentic from the Prophet ﷺ's practice that he ever singled out the 27th night, or the 25th, or the 29th, or even the odd night. The Prophet ﷺ, the last 10 nights, he treated them the same. So keep pushing, and pushing without ghulu, without going to extremes. And the most important thing, remember, the most important thing is quality. Is quality, is you're praying, you're reading Quran, is that your heart is present, because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. That's it for me. I thought I had a couple of points, but I can't think of anything now. Do we have any questions? We have maybe about 5 minutes. If there's questions about anything, probably we can deal with them. Yes? Steps to improve khushu'. You know what the issue with khushu' is? The tricky part of khushu' is you don't do khushu', but usually we try to push ourselves to khushu'. So we have two things as humans, by the way. If you want to change your state, you have two options. You either learn something and do it when there's a need for learning. But that doesn't work with everything. Why? Because there are certain things where you need to do the other approach, which is unlearning. You're already doing something and you're doing it wrong. So if you learn another thing, it's not going to help you. You need to learn to stop doing what you do wrong. Right? And by the way, for example, if you deal with a lot of psychological issues are just like that. For example, confidence, self-esteem. If you think you're gonna get self-esteem and confidence by learning things, you're fooling yourself. Because lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem is a thought process, negative thoughts about yourself that you have learned over time. You cannot gain confidence unless you remove that, unlearn them. When you unlearn them, you realize the natural state of humans is confident. Have you ever seen a 2-month-old, like a 2-month-old child having issues with self-esteem? A child having issues with self-esteem? A 1-year-old, toddler? Why would they have, like, humans don't have an issue with self-esteem. But we learn that at some time in our childhood, or maybe teenage years, maybe even later on. We learn to doubt who we are and what ourselves are. The same way is with khushu'. Khushu' is a natural state. You are standing in the presence of Allah. If you really put yourself in that mindset, I'm standing in the presence of my creator, my originator, why won't you have khushu'? But we have so many assumptions. We have made up so many stories about salah and about Allah that are inaccurate, that are wrong, plain wrong. And that's how we perform our salah. And then, hey, I'm not feeling khushu'. Well, of course, because these thoughts are blocking your heart from connecting to Allah. So the tricky part of khushu' is we need to unlearn what we have learned. A lot of the wrong things we've learned about Allah, about our relationship with Allah. Thinking like all what Allah wants from you is your presence. All Allah wants from you is your presence. Sometimes I'll give you an example of the wrong things we have. You think if you sinned, oh, I'm not worthy of khushu'. I'm just going to pray because I have to pray. Allah's not going to accept me. We have this, it's very subtle, it's very deep. How can you have khushu'? If you're already despaired of Allah's mercy, if you already think Allah's dismissive of you, you're not going to have khushu'. So if you learn 1,000 things, they're not going to get you khushu' unless you unlearn this wrong, false notion about Allah. All Allah wants, what's the prayer? You're just standing in front of Allah. That's it, you and Allah. That's all you need for khushu'. Khushu' is already inside you. So that's the tricky part. So for khushu' specifically, we don't need learning. We need unlearning. We need to get rid of the garbage that we have internalized. That's holding us back from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One more question. The issue of moon sighting. I avoid talking about this, and the reason is it just increases the arguments no matter what you say. So my advice to everyone, in your locality there is an imam, a teacher, a scholar, a religious figure that you trust. Follow them and leave it. That's bottom line. Technically speaking, and that's the opinion I take, different parts of the world are different. different parts of the world are different. And in the locality, let's say North America, it's a very reasonable sort of like geographical unity. And you can divide it even further into the east and the west of North America, generally speaking, roughly speaking. If the moon is sighted, let's say Monday night around Maghrib time, just before after Maghrib, if the moon is sighted Monday in Windsor, Ontario, or Chicago, US, by a reliable source, Hilal Committee, Crescent Committee, imams, local imams of the masjid, and so on and so forth, if it's sighted. And Pakistan, it was not So Pakistan, the moon was not sighted. Saudi was not sighted, right? So they're having their Eid Wednesday. We're gonna have our Eid Tuesday. Somebody says, how come? How come they're having it, Wednesday we have it? That's this unity of the Muslims. No, in this locality it was sighted. And this is called ta'addud al-matali' in Arabic, in fiqh. It's called the multiplicity of the sighting of the moon, the areas for sighting the moon. That's more reasonable, because if we see the moon here, just because in Pakistan they didn't see it, we're gonna fast the day of Eid, right? Okay, but don't get into that, guys, by the way, because if you hear the other opinion which says no, the whole world is matla' wahid, global sighting, it's called global sighting, right? They have strong logic and reason behind it, and by the way, the evidence does not specify. So all of this is matters of ijtihad. Do they have a point? They have a strong point. So I'd say leave it, follow the person, person you trust, person of knowledge, and leave it. We're not going to solve this disunity. Following calculations, I don't see it as an option, to be honest, with all respect. It just goes against the text plainly. That's the problem. Jazakumullah khair. It's time for adhan, I think.